Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk about projection systems in ArcGIS or using projection systems in ArcGIS. Now, projection systems or coordinate systems are uh, uh, pretty much a grid that aligns with the region that you're in. Now, it could be like a global grid, it could be a regional one or a local one, but it represents a mathematical model that can be applied to take the 3D world and project it into a 2D environment, which is a flat map. So, for the most part, ArcGIS is pretty friendly with this. Uh, it's compatible with pretty much any projection system out there. So, uh, oftentimes, I think people will find that they're bringing in a shapefile or a feature class that they've downloaded, and they're experiencing that things aren't lining up really. And that usually happens when something is not defined properly. So we can do this really quickly. Um, I'll do something here. So let's create a feature class called projection test. Or we'll call this no projection. So this won't have a projection. So it could be a polygon. And it says this projection system here. I'm just not going to give it a projection system. Um, Actually, you know what? I'll give it a projection right now because I think I have to, but I can take it away later. So what I can do quickly. So what I'll do here is clear the projection system, and you can do that. I could have done this earlier when I was creating it, but I'll show you how to clear it. So you can clear it here, and what that does is just gets rid of the projection system that's assigned to this feature class. As you can see, it says unknown. So that being said, now you see if you look at the bottom right corner of my screen, the coordinate systems are all over the place and it says unknown, which makes sense because a coordinate system isn't defined. So technically this is everywhere at ever existed at the same time. It's not really local to any particular place. So what we'll do is we'll create a couple of features inside of that feature class and see how we can bring it into a system where it does have a coordinate system. So we're just opening up ArcMap here, and like I showed you in another video, you can quickly drag and drop um, from your Arc catalog into ArcMap. So let's start an edit session. So to start an edit session, you basically uh, get your editor toolbar. I mean, I can mount it somewhere over here so it's a little easier. I start editing. Now see, if you look at the bottom right corner of the ArcMap window again, around here, you'll see that the coordinates are unknown, and they're ridiculously in, like it's in the quadrillions. So let's try to draw some spec. So if we go to create feature, just create something here, this little polygon, and that's where that exists. So let's stop the edit session, and let's bring in this feature class. And this feature class, if you see, it's defined to NAD 1983 Zone 17 UTM. So that is a projection system uh, that's pretty much right on in Ontario, the Toronto region. So yeah, that's in Canada. So if we just drag and drop that here, you see it doesn't appear anywhere, right? Because there's no context. But if I go here and go to zoom to layer, this will appear. So the problem with ArcMap is um, not it's I don't think it's a problem, but rather than it's a particular feature, but when you drop stuff without a projection system defined in it, what happens is ArcMap, the data frame, this data frame that you're loading stuff into, gets defined by the first data set that you drop with or without a data frame. So, sorry, with or without a projection system. So essentially what's happening is, because I drop something without a projection system or a coordinate system, my coordinate system is not defined for the data frame. So every subsequent polygon or feature class or whatever I drop in here does not adhere to a coordinate system. It may have its own coordinate system, but on the map, it doesn't really exist anywhere. So we can give it context by defining the coordinate system of the data frame by going to coordinate system here in the data frame properties, just by right-clicking the data frame. I'll show you again. Right-clicking the data frame, going to the coordinate system tab, and then selecting a coordinate system. Now there's a few ways to do it. So you can click down on the layers, and you'll see that there's two coordinate systems, or the lack of a coordinate system in one, that's defined um, in this map. So there's one that's NAD 1983 UTM Zone 17 North, and then there's the unknown, which is our no projection test that we cleared out. So we'll pick this one. So what happens is, now you have context. So if you look at the bottom right again, you have context. This is the coordinate system generally around the Toronto area. So what we can do is try to get some more context and add a base map. Now we'll add the streets one from ArcGIS Online, see what happens. And it'll just take a minute here to load. So once it's loaded, it should load. Okay, here we go. So we're in the downtown area here in Toronto, and um, and you see it's actually placed in an area where uh, the coordinate systems have context and they make sense. But our no projection test, let's see where that is. So if we zoom to that, it's in nowhere. It's probably so zoomed in or zoomed out that this base map is pretty much a speck. So it won't appear in the same even data frame. It's probably just one of these pixels somewhere on this map here that I can't even see. So, um, so that's what happens when you add data to uh, feature classes or shapefiles that don't have a projection system defined. You tend to be all over the place, and your map and your features won't have context because they're drawn outside of a defined projection. And we can quickly remedy this by giving it a projection. So we can just do it from our catalog right within. I'm sure this will throw some kind of error right now. But if I go to my toolboxes here, and I go to data management tools, and I go to where's my projection and transform, and you go to define. Now, there's two. There's define projection and there's project. And this is like a tricky question that comes up in like interview questions and things like that people should remember. Define projection is giving a projection to something that has already has a projection system. It's just not set properly. So things inside of it has been drawn um, in some projection system. It just hasn't been defined. So the map or sorry, the software doesn't know what projection system it's in. What you're doing is, okay, you're defining it, so the software is able to read that. So we'll select it here. Go to no project test, and it says unknown, and we want to change that to this one. And we do. Boom goes the dynamite, and we're done. So now that projection is defined. Now, let's see. Now, if you see that uh, shapefile, or that feature I had in here that I created before, is gone because it can't actually exist in this map. It's outside of the context that you could draw it. So if I try to edit this map right now, it won't let me. It'll give me an error. So if I do this and try to save, I believe. You see how it disappeared? Look at that. So it can't exist, and that it can't exist mainly. I think the main reason for this is because the projection, the scale was too large. It was in the trillions, and ArcGIS just won't handle that well, especially for a defined projection. So it just kind of craps out, and then it doesn't display your data. Um, I believe it used to throw an error of some sort, but apparently now it doesn't. But so if I try to, let's say if I go to the world base map again. Now my projection in the data frame is defined to this. So this is the area I can draw in. If I try to draw something here, I think it should throw an error. Okay, it just won't draw it. But it's pretty much like an error. So, however, if I draw something here, it should technically draw it. Well, not even there. So I'll have to zoom right in. Let's see. What's going on? Let's see what happened. Oh, look at that. So this, I think this happens because there is a projection error now with this data set. Um, so let's go ahead and remove that. Let's see. Let's examine that. That's actually a good scenario because these are the types of things you run into. So let's see what is happening with this feature class. So it's this feature class right here. Obviously, there's nothing in here, but you see the context of the map here. It's crazy high. You can't, ArcMap can't possibly handle that in meters because it's way too large. So let's try to do some troubleshooting here. Um, so if you go to feature extent, you see it's the feature extent here. It's the parameters are way too large, like I said before. So we'll have to recalculate it. Let's try that, and I'll give you that there. So that seems to be a little better, maybe. Okay, so it has this coordinate system defined, and now we'll drop it into our ArcMap. So if we drop it into ArcMap here, let's try to draw something. See if it works. All right, so that worked. Or did it? Let's see. Maps redrawing. Okay, yeah, it did. So that works. See, it's able to. It finally has an extent that it can work within. So because of that, it's able to draw the shape. So this was I think that was a pretty good exercise in terms of the things you kind of run into with ArcMap. Um, so uh, having said that, maybe we want to project this to another coordinate system. let's say a geographic coordinate system. Like if you see right now, everything's in meters, right? So the length is in meters, the area is in meters. Um, we can change that. Um, we can change the units of this projection system to, let's say, like a decimal degrees or something like that. A geographic projection or a coordinate system, it's called. So let's try that out and see what happens. And for that, we go to the same tool set, the projections and transformations, and we go to project. So the first time we went to define projection, where we wanted to give it a projection that it already kind of knew, which it didn't have the context, it didn't know the projection, but it was defined. But now we want to change the projection into something else, so we're transforming it into something else using a mathematical model that we'll define in the project tool. So we can use the project tool here, and we can add this in here. And so the input coordinate system is this, which is right, because that's the one we picked. So we'll just call this projected at the end, and we'll choose the output projection system. And for that, we can use this kind of coordinate system. We'll use the world, the WGS 1984, which is a pretty prominent one. I'm pretty sure the base map might be using it, or a variation of it. And there's a bunch of stuff you can use. I think there's one called... You know what? We'll just use WGS 84. Most GPSs use this, WGS 84. It's a pretty prominent one, so we might as well go ahead and use that. And you'll get the transformation here. There's a bunch to choose from. I generally go with this one, and I remove this one. And it just works for the regions I work in. So I go okay, rejected. All right, and it projected. So you'll see there's no real fundamental difference between the two, but let's say I open up another ArcMap document. Now, what we're going to do is bring that project test underscore projected feature class into this ArcMap, the new ArcMap session, and see what happens. So let's drag it and drop it from here. Now, if you go to the data frame, you see it's in decimal degrees, and these are the decimal degrees. This is the range of decimal degrees that you'll get around the Toronto area or the Ontario area. So we're at 1 to 600,000 here, so it's a pretty big extent. But that's essentially what you're seeing, and we can see if you go to the properties of the data frame, it will have that WGS84 as the projection, because that is the first feature class that we dropped into this new map, and it had that WGS84 projection, or sorry, the coordinate system defined, and that's why the data frame inherited that. So let me know what you guys think. I will create some more videos on other topics. If you have any topics in mind, please let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching.